Hi friends, this is Joe, and this is episode number 174 of the Decahedron RPG podcast. And this episode is called Fanac, Gafia, and Podfading. What language is that? Other than Podfading, that's Fanspeak or Fanish. That's the jargon that evolved out of the science fiction and fantasy fan community. They called themselves fandom. For much of the 20th century. Believe it or not, the first Worldcon, the World Science Fiction Convention, was in 1939. That's almost 100 years ago. We think of it as being something newer, but it's not. And as with any community, they establish this jargon. And I'm going to be using a lot of it today, so buckle up. Yeah. Much like Jabberwocky, where 'twas Brillig and the Slithy Toes did Gyre and Gimble the Wob, all msy were the Borogroves and the Moan Wraths out grab. It's nonsense words, but you know what it is in context. You just kind of know. I'm going to be doing that. I'm not going to stop and explain every term. I'm just going to use it as I use it. I have notes here. I'll probably be reading them. This is a little more prepared than most of my episodes, and that's that. I consider myself an Acti fan. My Fanac includes this podcast, this YouTube channel. It includes being a central mailer for the Anchorite Amateur Press Association. It includes my zine, Basic Simplicity. Even includes my blog, The Vagabond GM, although I haven't updated that in a few years. So maybe that's not a good example of being an Acti fan. And maybe you're saying, gee, Joe, your episodes haven't been as regular as late. Are you podfading? Podfading is a phenomenon where a podcast gradually stops producing content without notice, right? A weekly podcast becomes bi-weekly, and then monthly, and then silence. And then maybe a few months later, you'll get an episode that says, hey, I'm back. And maybe even, if you're lucky, another episode or two after that, but then never hear from it again. It is a common phenomenon in podcasting. It's how most podcasts die. I think it's the creators don't want to just say, hey, I'm done, right? They're hoping to be able to get back to it. They're hoping that whatever is stopping them from making them right now will go away and they'll be able to get back to it. So that raises the question, though, is that what's happening here? Is the Decahedron RPG podcast podfading? I hope not. But I have to admit, it kind of looks like it. And even my wife, she's not a gamer, right? But she listens to my podcast from time to time because, it's me. And she's said, hey, Joe, why aren't you podcasting as often as you used to? So that's a good question. Why? Why haven't I been podcasting as much as I used to? Is it that the shine is going off the apple, that I'm not getting the same pleasure out of doing this podcast that I used to? No, not really. That's not it. I love gaming. I've talked about that before. I don't do this for money or anything like that. I do it because I love gaming. I love having conversations with you about this hobby that we share. So then is it maybe a lack of time? Yeah, totally. That's it. When I retired from the Air Force last year, Air Force Reserve, I was 14 and a half years Air Force Reserve, and before that I was 14 and a half years in active duty Air Force, so like 29 years total service. But last year I retired from the reserve, and I was like, oh, I'm going to have all this extra time. What should I do with it? And I was like, I know, I'll do. And I gave myself 3 things, 2, depending on how you want to count. The last one might count as 1 or 2. I count it as 2. Things to do. First one was I joined Civil Air Patrol. Civil Air Patrol is a civic organization dedicated to aerospace education and search and rescue, and most importantly, in my mind, setting up the next generation for success. When I was a high school student, I was in the Rhode Island 81st AFJ ROTC, Air Force Junior ROTC. And that did a lot of great things for me, and that set me up for my Air Force career to excel and to do well. And wanted to do this as my way of paying it back or forward, however you want to look at it, to the next generation, so that they would have that same opportunity, that same leg up that I did. And when I joined Silver Air Patrol, I was told that it was a 1 night a week commitment. Thursday night, 7 to 10. 7 to 9. That was it. And that has not turned out to be the truth. They lied. The second and third thing, or just the second thing, depending how you want to count, is I started the Anchorite Amateur Press Association. And within that, I started my zine, Basic Simplicity. And between the two of those, on top of the Silver Air Patrol commitment, my time is gone. So before those things, my schedule was, Monday through Friday, normal job. Monday night, Wednesday night, Friday night, go to the gym, which pretty much left me Tuesday night and Thursday night as my me time. And then during the weekend, I would do this podcast. But now, Thursday night is gone, and a lot of the weekend time is dedicated to the APA, and so that pushes off the podcast to some of the Tuesday night time. Every night I dedicate 9 o'clock onward to family time. You can't let everything swallow you up from family. They're important to your life. I guess the short version of the story is that I have too many irons in the fire, and the podcast is suffering for it. On top of that, there have been a few things that have caused me disillusionment with the podcast. The first one was the Tunnels and Trolls mega review. The fact that we had a complete lack of participation, other than Jason. Thanks a lot, Jason. But, even James, because I talk to James on like a daily basis, and he was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to get you something, right? And I was like, yeah, you got the books, right? Yeah, he says, yeah, and nothing. And I pushed it off a week, and nothing, and another week, nothing. And, nobody owes me anything. This is my podcast. You don't owe me a dang thing. So I'm not angry. But after the first one for Fudge went so well, I was riding this high, and then crickets. And that just brought me down. And that was a little heartbreaking. It sounds like it's overselling it, but Yeah, I said, okay, I should finally get that one out so we could start the next one. And I recorded that a couple weeks ago, but I just can't bring myself to edit that. I'll probably even end up re-recording it. The other thing that frustrated me was episode 170. I talked about that already. James and I sat down, and it was a great episode. He was on fire. He was asking like really great questions, and he was doing great things. And, we were demonstrating Tunnels and Trolls combat, and it was awesome. But when it was all done, I sat down to edit, and I'd used the wrong software to record everything. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I can save it. I pushed things out for a week or so, and I couldn't. And so I was like, oh, what am I going to do? And so that one annoyed me, frustrated me. As if those two weren't enough, the last episode I did, number 173, about too much color, I recorded it, and I was like, oh, let me try this new strategy. Instead of recording video, in order to make things go faster, I'm just going to record an audio, just like I used to do in the podcast days before I started doing it on YouTube as well. Because recording audio is so much faster than recording video. And then I'll just make like some PowerPoint slides, and I will put them up to the audio, and we'll see how that goes over, if that works well. And so I did that, and iMovie refuses to export it. I can export the audio, and so I did that, and I released it as a podcast episode, thinking, okay, come Tuesday, I'll set aside some time, and I will use that time to edit the video and see if I can make it work. I tried that a little bit, and that didn't work. And then I was like, well, when can I do it again? Well, it can't be Thursday, that's CAP. And then you feel like you're underwater. And you reach the point, why bother? On top of all that, I have a ton of feedback that I need to catch up on. And I feel like I've been a bad podcaster for not playing your feedback and addressing the comments that you have sent me. You take the time out of your day to send them to me. The least I can do is address them. That's on me. Part of it is that YouTube does not like feedback episodes. And I don't know why. And I shouldn't care, right? I shouldn't. Because I'm not in this for money. I'm not monetized, right? In theory, it doesn't make a difference if I have 1 view or 5 million views. But if I only have 1 view, what's the point? What's the point of spending hours, literally hours, editing the video for 1 view? And so when you do a feedback episode, they don't perform well. And because they don't perform well, the algorithm doesn't suggest the next video you do that's not even a feedback video to viewers. And so it hurts those as well. And I got caught in this trap of following the algorithm rather than following my core mission, if you will, which is just to share my love for the hobby with you and converse back and forth, two-way conversation. So I'm going to do that. The next episode or two I'm going to do, there might be one before that, but I'm going to catch up on feedback. So there'll probably be a very long feedback episode or 2 longish feedback episodes, but that's what I should do, and that's what I am going to do. So there's a couple other things I need to do. The first one is I need to understand that there is a true and real need for gafiation. I told you I was going to use these fandom terms. All right, so gafiation. I'm going to explain this one. There's an acronym called Gafia, G-A-F-I-A. It's for get away from it all, or getting away from it all. And it's actually a fun little term, comes from way back in the 19th century, not 19th century, 1900s. And originally, when the first guy used it, what he meant was to get away from the mundane macrocosm and escape into fandom. But in no time at all, that meaning got reversed. And it kind of meant to get away from Fanac into that mundane macrocosm, because real life comes first, as they say, and it takes us away from things that don't pay the bills and stuff like that. Fen, being who Fen are, would take that word and they would derive from it a verb to gafiate. I'm going to go gafiate. And then the noun gafiation. And there's even like a personal noun of a gafiator, of a creature of some sort that pulls you away from fandom for whatever. Spoiler alert, in a future episode and in issue 5 of the APA, I'm going to do a write-up for a monster called the Gafiator. Actually, there's 2. Coming soon. But anyway, yeah, what was the point though? The point is that it isn't this thing that just happens, and it isn't this thing that can be avoided. You got to acknowledge that it's there and respect it. And so to that end, I am moving this from a weekly podcast to an every other week podcast, and that will give me a week just to gafiate, just to go out on my bike ride on the weekend if I want, without bringing my camera and the mic and everything. Because right now, if you look at my bike, there is a saddlebag dedicated just for the camera equipment, and that's going overboard. So every other week. Technically speaking, that's not Gafia. That's more like Gafmoy. Told you I wasn't going to explain these terms. And even then, I would say every other week isn't Gafmoy, but it's more Gafsoy. But that last one, that's cheating. I just made that one up. I don't think anyone's ever used it before, Gafsoy. But if you know what Gafmoy is, you should be able to figure it out. The other thing, it won't have immediate benefit, but the other thing is that I'm going to give up my seat as central mailer on the APA. I'm not going to do this until February, though, early February. Right after issue number 9 goes out, that's going to be our 1 year our first year was set up with 9 issues in mind, and as soon as I finish that with the ninth issue, I'm going to step down. If you're in the APA and you're saying, "Oh no, did we do something wrong?" This has always been my plan. I just didn't announce it because I never wanted the Anchorite APA to be Joe Gill's APA. I am proud, I'm delighted to say that it is the APA that Joe Gill started. But, you know, like George Washington stepped down and established his great precedents, and so that this country isn't George Washington's country. And likewise, I don't want the APA to be my APA, and I want to set this precedence that the APA is bigger than any one person, and the central mailer stepping down can easily transfer all that to another person, and it will go on happily. So come February, I will have a little bit more time. I do still plan to be involved in the APA with my own zine, Basic Simplicity, but giving up the CM duties will free up some time for me and give me some more time for the for the podcast again. So that's what I can do. What can you do? This is not an announcement that I am starting a Patreon or anything like this. I've said it before, I am not in this for the money. I don't have a Patreon. I don't run ads. This channel isn't monetized on YouTube. That's not why I do this. I said it up earlier. I do this to have a conversation with you about games that we love. But a conversation is a two-way thing, right? It's not just me sitting here talking. When that happens, you feel like you're talking to, why bother speaking if no one's listening? How do I know that you're listening if I don't hear back from you? I don't want to say that's my payment because you don't owe me anything, but it motivates me. It motivates me big time. And if you listen to the show any amount of time, you'll notice that the feedback callers I do have, Jason, Evil Jeff, Merc the Meek, Riley, others. There's one thing that they all have in common. They're all podcasters. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's because podcasters know that we need this feedback. We need to know that there's someone listening to us, that there's someone engaging with our content, that this time I spent recording this, that the time I spent editing it, the time that I spent researching the stuff, if it's an episode that has something like that, that it's meaning something to somebody. And the only way to know that is if they tell you. I'm not asking you to pick up a phone and call the feedback line. Well, I mean, I am. I do that every episode. But I'm not saying you have to do that or anything. And I know a lot of people are self-conscious about their voice. But drop me an email. Just go on the YouTube channel and just write a comment. Hey, tell me that you loved it. Tell me that you hated it, but tell me why. Tell me what you agree with, what you disagree with. Be nice about it. Engage, and I will engage back.